Shout out to all the downcountry and XC racing dentists out there. Yeti have a new ASR and it's the lightest full suspension bike they've ever made. Obviously you can go straight to the comments now if you want to go on about how expensive it's likely to be, because you're right, it is. But what I want to know is how fast this brand new race weapon goes, and I've got Neil from Silverfish here with me as we hit the trails down Nid Gorge. So, it's the race bike. Already mentioned the weight, so let's get those numbers out there. Oh, hang on. Thanks very much, cheers. It's almost like I arranged to have some whippets standing by for the whippet review. Anyway, where was I? Frame weights. 1813 with flight attendant shock for the ultimate spec bike that costs a cool 14,000 quid. And then 1830 with a standard Sidlux shock on the standard Turk versions. But the really neat thing about that ultimate version is that it's a fully wireless frame, which is pretty rare. So that's where they save a bit of weight. And also it comes in a raw carbon colorway, so that's going to save a few grams as well. And I think actual frame weights, let me get this right, 1488 without shock, and it's 1552. If that's wrong, I'll correct it in the captions, but basically it's not ultra light, but it's certainly competitive if those weights are correct, because you know those are Yeti claimed weights. I haven't pulled it apart and got it on scales, but I can tell you that this large in XO spec costs £8,000, so I guess it's hygienist spec rather than dentist spec, and it weighs 1144 without pedals. Like I say, that's with alloy XO cranks, suspension, front and rear, twist lock lockout, and then the really heavy bit on this bike are the DC Swiss XM 1700 wheels, which they might say 1700 on them, but they're nearer to 2 kilos in actuality. In terms of travel, I'm hitting these steps with 120mm up front and then 115 out the back. And Yeti's big kind of selling point on this bike is that it genuinely gets all of that travel, which isn't always the case with flex day bikes. And then geometry, you're looking at 66.5 degree head angle, 75.5 degree seat angle. So up to this point, you know, things like top tube mounted shock, flex stays at the rear, you know, it looks a lot like a lot of other XC bikes, but obviously you've got that Yeti kudos behind that metal head badge on the front. But there are some interesting elements to it. Not least, you set it up for recommended sag 30%. So you're getting a lot of negative travel. As I'm riding on here, you can really feel it flowing through that nicely. There's really good adhesion on these little bits where the track drops away, and also on those steps and roots felt really good and plush and connected, because these lightweight flex day bikes can feel super lively and a bit unhinged, don't get the rebound bob on, but this feels pretty calm. Also feels pretty damn tight too, certainly through these race face bars. And I've not seen the anti-squat curves on that, but it feels like there's a decent degree of stand-up. So even with that 30% sag, it feels pretty positive under power. But having all that travel available does seem to give it impressive traction, because this is as slippery and as nasty as it looks. And it's only a recon race out back, but no worries up there. But Yeti have been pushing flex stays technology since the second ASR back in 2003. First one in 2000 was a faux bar, had those classic Yeti loop BMX style stays, and then the second bike they glued in like little carbon I-beams. I can remember testing that bike and everybody's been a bit worried about little glued in segments. And then another bike in 2005 and 2009, I think. And the design kind of changed into the 575. Oh, it's a dirty lens, sorry. Bet you didn't miss much. And then the last of the sort of race ASRs was 2015, which was one of the first race bikes with what was then pretty progressive geometry, so 68-degree head angle. But they really didn't match that up with a similarly stiff frame, so to be honest, it was a scary noodle. Whoop, 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 come on Yeti, find that bite. Actually, oh no. Hello dog fella, hello. So that was interesting there. Low speed, high torque, low cadence. First time I've really kind of felt this bike kind of bounce and suck down under power. But obviously the good news is, should have put it in pedal mode for a bit of a firmer response. And then, like I say, if you get the ultimate, you've got a full flight attendant on that. So that's doing all the thinking for you. And what's interesting, while that head angle and the seat angle are definitely, you know, contemporary numbers for a 120mm race bike, not the slackest, but not the steepest either. The reach at 465 on this large does feel like kind of last gen length, and also it's got a comparatively high seat tube, so while it has got this factory SL dropper on there, it does look and feel a bit taller than let's say the slackest and lowest bikes. Kind of pretty obvious that it'll do that really, but hey ho, still makes the point. But then on twitchy stuff like this, that's actually quite a bonus. And Yeti actually call it forward bias geometry to reflect that kind of more agile, deliberately more kind of dogfight rather than high stability numbers on it. Certainly the Epic, it's now got onboard storage, but I can see a lot of other bikes adding that, especially now this whole 120, 115, however they want to cut it, travel category is so trail and impact capable now. You can see more people moving to internal storage, which this hasn't got. So you have to get your PT's hold fast wrap on here to get your kit on. But the good thing when you're going down steps like that is it does come with a custom integrated chain keeper, and on the large and extra large that'll handle up to a 38 tooth chainring for the real monster gear mashers out there. And also get some neat features like replaceable armour in the belly of the bike, where there's also a little service hatch, the internal cable routing, plus, what's the other plus? Oh yeah, nice chainstay routing, and something else which I'll remember and have to take a photo of because I've forgotten at the moment, thinking too much about line. What's the other practical? That's it. There's a neat little fender over the main pivot. I knew it was something I had to remember when I was riding through mud. So yeah, little mud flap to keep your bearings clean. And of course, this is now the only meat powered Yeti full suspension bike that doesn't have, oh, the river's coming, there's only a beach to ride across. Oh boy. It's the only bike in the Yeti FS range that's now doesn't come with the Switch Infinity twin post floating main pivot, because obviously that adds a fair amount of weight. And also, though it did make a difference on bikes like the 115, there's a lot of admin and design work trying to fit it into the back of the seat tube. But this is the happy hunting ground of the ASR. It's always been the lightest full sus bike in the Yeti range, and they've really pushed that home with this one. I think one of the carbons came close at 4.1. That might have been one with 26-inch wheels though. And I can definitely tell you that had nothing like the stiffness of kick that this bike does, so that when things turn up and you're in that lockout mode, there is no need to gear down. You just got to get abominable showman on the people behind you. Nice work, Turk. Right, there's a high chance I'll come unstuck down here, given the conditions and the tyres. But at least I'm not going to blame the Yeti, because there is plenty of precision through this front end now. Like I say, oh yes, beautifully done. And I'll let the bike take the credit for that. Yes, this is really poised. Say it's a bit shorter than some of its contemporaries, but that means when you get your Botox off the saddle, you can really hip and slip this bike around on these Recon tyres, really feed the weight into the points you want. So while there is more bar flutter than you might have seen on similar downcountry bikes recently, it handled that really nicely. Nice, lively, engaging ride from this ASR. Because let's face it, most people who buy this are going to be buying it, yeah, for fast, but for fast fun, not fast racing. It's not like the glory days when Tomac, Furtado, Missy and everyone were ripping up the XC racetracks. Well, Missy wasn't, but Trest 4-cross on some of the bikes. I really want to be careful of provoking the Yeti fans by saying something wrong, because those guys are the most fanatical and well-informed fan club of any brand. And again, that goes back to what I said right at the start. Yeah, it is expensive. Not even going to deny that, but boy, do you get some history and some kudos built into this ride tuned carbon fibre frame. Going back to the stiffness on this bike, it's all the more impressive because normally running a lot of sag kind of exacerbates that feeling of pitch and yaw. And while they've got different layup for each size of frame, they all get a machined out axle to save weight. So again, that could easily introduce a lot of flex, but it definitely hasn't. Right, so this is a properly evil climbing challenge. I'll be impressed if I get anywhere near. Oh no. Right, that's better than expected though. I'll give it a second try. Those roots, that is not grippy for a recon. Let's go again. Let's try and hit it with a bit more speed. Come on, because I don't want to, you know, I'm not going to blame the bike, but those DT Swiss tyres, wheels, I mean, are a little bit harder. Oh, no. Third time. I think it's polishing up more than gripping out. Third time. As I was saying, those DT Swiss wheels are harder to spin up than the carbon set. Let's go wide into the brush. Oh no. Oh well, defeated. But you know, it's got the guts to try at least. And what they lack in wet, rooty grip, that Recon double act definitely make up for in rolling speed. And you know, even though they're heavy, those DT wheels are just going to keep rolling forever. Plus the frame comes with a full lifetime warranty, like all Yetis do now. So that's another peace of mind. And it comes in extra small to extra large sizes as well. So you're covered, according to the Yeti chart, from 4'10" right up to 6'7". Right, more slip and slide. Yeah, get that foot out. Nice. Just realised I pretty much mimicked the OG sliding Yeti head badge. I think he was a bit hairier than me and a way lot cooler, but I did have an Eto helmet back in the day. Oh dear, thinking about helmets now, riding like one. And while there is a little bit of squat in low rev, high torque situations like that, it's very linear progression throughout the travel, so it soon settles in the mid stroke, so it's good and predictable. Doesn't feel like there's a little bit of nose, you're really grunting it right now, but it's certainly not bouncing around and feeling inefficient, even in open. In fact, it's a pretty good sign that I keep forgetting there is actually a lockout on the bars, so I don't even need to climb in open, but it's fine if I do, if that makes sense. Oh, hypoxic ramblings. And while I was joking about this being hygienist spec with the XO and the DT Swiss wheels, good news is the stuff that really matters, like the suspension, is really high grade. So you've got SID Ultimate Fork. Whoa! Ah. Let's go down. They got SID Ultimate Fork, you got SID Lux Ultimate Rear Shock. Oh, this is proper speedway. Yeah. In fact, like I say, that balance on the Yeti still just held it, but it loves a bit of foot out. Which is always a good sign of a balanced bike, to be fair. And then you got race face next to SL bar. That definitely adds a ton of tightness to the front end, but you know, it's gagging to have a similarly stiff carbon race face era crank slid into that threaded BB. So that's another bonus now. No more press fit. Oh yeah, and that's the Transfer SL post, reminding me you get the super light 2-position slam dropper from Fox in there. And yeah, considering you get all that, and XOs, the tougher, the T-type transmissions, that 11.44 weight, pretty respectable. For a bike that feels as tight as this, and has some nice protective measures on it as well. Oh yeah, head tube cable clamping is really nice too. Get some marks for that as well. I am going to have to check the internal cable routing when I get back. I've not given that a frisk. I can't hear it, so I imagine it's at least semi-guided. Oh, and shout out to the bike yoke stem. That's really, really neat. Getting Syncross cattle prod vibes off that baby. And one, going back to the suspension, well, I've had not much chance to test it over sections like this. This is a great piece of trail. Oh, if you don't catch your arm on a bloody branch. Ah, what a monkey. That is normally a great piece of trail for showing how well a bike can pedal through. And I have to say, that extra sag in the mid-stroke on this means it went through there as well as any twin linkage bikes I can think of. Right, this is another climbing challenge that's almost certainly bound to fail, but I have to say, nearly. Didn't feel too bad. Considering I didn't get a run in at all. And I will say, you get a lot of power positivity through this back end, even with that lightweight. Come on, Kez. Yes. You. I'll take that. Fully open as well, but didn't feel too mushy at all. Still felt nicely connected. Oh, this is like the Somme through here though. This is why I haven't ridden down here for a while. Winter has not been kind to the gorge. Oh, that's the other thing. Tyre clearance is pretty good. Even with that little pivot mudguard on, you get a dirty 2.4 through without any worries. It's always a bonus in Britain. And I have noticed, because it's sitting in the sag a lot, on really steep stuff, when you're on the brakes, it does rise up. And so it feels a little steeper than that 66.5 head angle headline. And also because it's a bit shorter. But on the other plus, that means you can really nip it into tight turns. And I'm getting a lot more bite than I'd expect from these tyres in this condition. And also, if you look at the geometry, apart from the fact the reach is 10mm shorter, this is basically the same shape as my favourite trail bike, the SB120, which I only really had one complaint about, and that was the weight of it. But this is almost 2 kilos lighter, because that's a 13.3 kilo bike with a very similar spec on to this. I mean, slightly heavier tyres, but still pretty much the same wheels, etc. So, you know, if you want to get that extra punch and pedal, and lightweight acceleration, but that SB120 sure-footedness, I mean, it ain't Switch Infinity, but the mid-stroke is good enough. It's pretty damn close. So, there we go. Back where we started. Considerably more clarted, but having expended a lot less energy than I'd normally expect to, unless I was on a proper lightweight pinner like this Yeti ASR. What's the big takeaway here? Just balance, I think. You know, it's the way, you know, it's funny, it's the moments where it's let go and slid and just kept that drift, foot out or whatever, has just really brought home how taut and nicely put together this bike is. I'd say the geometry is middle school, it's not old school, it's not new school, but it'll just suit a whole load of people. The weight is totally competitive, it's got some nice practical features. Okay, you haven't got internal storage like you have on the new Epic. It's not the lightest bike out there, but it's definitely not the heaviest either. And it's just a really, really rideable bike for anyone who wants to go fast, whether that's for racing, for trail, or just to go hunting down e-bikes and slapping kill stickers on that desert turquoise top tube. Again, a tremendous sense of achievement out of it. Because frankly, that's what I'd love to do with this bike. It's a proper little hunter, but without being like, it's not like a zero hostage situation when you're on it. It still likes to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a play. Guys, it's weird trying to describe bikes like this because there are a lot of bikes out there like this, but none of the others say Yeti on them and come in 4 beautiful colours, and that is going to be a massive deal to the people who are going to be absolutely delighted that there's an ASR back in play for this year. So massive thanks, Neil from Silverfish, for bringing the bike up for me to have a play on. I hope you've enjoyed. I mean, I get a limited insight, let's be honest, very much a first ride. But I'm amazed how well that 30% sag works. It's good to see people mixing it up. They haven't gone for the standard 20-25% sag. And you'd think that would make a really, really mushy bike, especially as it's relatively easy to get into that mid-stroke, but that really linear 10% compression on it just sits you floating in that sweet spot. And what's interesting, the one thing I haven't pushed it to is the end of the progression stroke. So I've not had a chance to look inside that shock, so maybe you could get a travel out of there. But then again, it's been really, really buoyant and controlled in the centre of the shock, and to be honest, it's been so slippery, and there's no big drops over here. I haven't really hit any situation where I would expect to go full travel, so that's not a criticism, it's just an observation. But definitely tight fore and aft, a lot of drive when you're pedalling, even with that kind of neutral pedal position. That lightweight axle hasn't sucked any stiffness out of it. You've got room for a big chainring in there, like I say, up to 38 tooth through that custom chain guide, if you want to properly mill those cranks around. And, you know, like I say, this spec, it's really well judged because you do get top level suspension. You get great contact points on there. Big fan of that WTB saddle. Sandarandarero or something. I don't know. It might not even be out yet. I probably even shouldn't be talking about it. But it's like the new WTB snub nose saddle. We like that. You're getting the Transfer Dropper SL on there. Fox Transfer SL with the Kashima shaft. So that's a nice deal. And you're getting T-Type. But obviously, you know, if you want to save some weight out of it, slot some carbon wheels in. Get that carbon era crank on there, and you're going to get this down to a really, really competitive weight. Because even 1144 is not bad for a large bike with 150 mil of travel and those DT Swiss wheels in there. But for now, massive thanks to my normal channel sponsors. Thanks to my Patreon subscribers who pledge on a monthly basis, and they really, really help with the upkeep of the channel. So if you really like what I'm doing on here and, you know, want to fund me washing machine tablets, because I'm going to need some of them after this ride, then get onto my Patreon page. But like, click for notifications and subscribe. I'm going to have a whole ton of exciting new bikes coming through the channel. It's a bit of an onslaught because it's an Olympic year, and I am here for it. But it's great to have, you know, such a storied brand like Yeti in the mix with a race bike again. It's been a long old time. And I've missed having the ASR, SB115, not so much. SB110, again, weird geometry, bit too heavy because they tried to get Switch Infinity in there. But going back to a simple flex day design, because they're one of the first to do it, but also doing it really, really well. I love that little linkage. Come on, one last close-up. That little CNC machine linkage in there, that is so tight. Actually kind of reminds me of like late 90s superlight bikes, that little, you know, machining attention to detail in there. But it just seems right on something like this Yeti. And yeah, well, look out for it in your esteemed Yeti dealers. All you got to do is pick which colour you want. Because, I don't know, there's some nice ones, aren't there? That's nice. I mean, this is the classic, but you're a fan of the spruce green? Yeah. And then there's Greyhound, although Whippet, I think you should call it Whippet. I mean, it's a Whippet bike. I mean, yeah, I guess Greyhound most of the world, but definitely a Whippet up here in Yorkshire. And that is what this bike has felt like today. There you go. There's the segue. That's what you're waiting for. I've been Guy Kesterman on Guy Kest TV, talking nonsense on a bike that makes a lot of sense, especially if you like your classic MTB history and going damn fast.